Hey guys, it's Bina, and in today's video, I want to go over the endgame progression that a new player might have, all the questions that you might have, when to go into monos, how strong are the blessings, should I be upgrading them once I get to empowered, do I want to go into dungeons or arena, when, why, how to increase corruption, by how much, how deep should I go into a web before resetting, are there some ways to deal with feeling squishy with the build, is there a temporary fix or something, how do different monos differ in terms of loot. So we're going to go over all of these topics today, and just to give you a smooth new player progression into the end game of last Epoch, so that you can have a great time with any build that you want, right? So let's get started right into it. Which mono to do and in what order. So the first thing to note is that the right side of the monos include blessings with character power, stuff like resistances, stuff like critical strike chance, crit multi, spell damage leech, all the things that will affect how your character gears and gets power. So these are the ones that you want to do first. You do the ones on the right side, and then you unlock the 3 level 90 monos. So these 3 are necessary to unlocking empowered monoliths, because all of these together will enable you to go to the middle here, and then you click on this thing, you unlock empowered monoliths, and it makes them all level 100 with higher drop rates and higher blessing potential. So the blessings, the timelines on the left side are the ones that give character drop rates, right? It's going to give you increased boots drop rate, increase prefixes shards drop rate, increase class specific shards drop rate. So these are not that important. You might want to get them after you get all of your character power, and then you can do them if you don't have anyone else, any other to do. But ultimately, you want to get your character power first, and when you get into empowered monoliths, you want to do still the ones on the right side and increase your character's power, because the roll range are going to be much higher. For example, you're gonna have like resistance blessings that go up to 75%, while 75% is actually the cap you need to be able to like get the most out of your resistances in this game. So as you can see, these can be extremely powerful, and you must do them as early as you can. So that pretty much covers the blessings and the early mono. How do I want to get into dungeon, or do I want to do arena? Well, the answer is yes. You might want to go into dungeons at some point. Certain dungeons are tied to specific drops. If you are following a build guide, the guide will tell you, okay, you find this specific item into this dungeon. But for those of you that are not following build guides, I have a link down below for where to find every single item, and you can just type your item in, and it's going to tell you where it actually dropped. So certain dungeons are more important than others. Temporal Sanctum is the most important one of all, because that is the one where you will craft your legendary item. Legendary items are uniques with legendary potential that you imprint an exalted into them, right? It grabs a couple of affixes from an exalted and puts it into the unique. So you can have basically 2 items into one. This is a dungeon mechanic from the Temporal Sanctum. At the very end of the dungeon, there is a cache. You put your 2 items there, you transfer timeline, and then your 2 items are combined. I'll have a separate guide for this one as well, but the Temporal Sanctum is the most important one. There's also another one which is called the Lightless Arbor. It has really good drops from the boss, and afterwards there's a gold sink. There's also a vault after the boss, which you can spend gold to get up to 6 chests, which can contain an insane amount of items. So that as well will have its separate guide. So that pretty much covers it for dungeons. The other dungeons are also good to do at times, but they're much more niche, and these will have to be covered in another topic. So arena now, there's 2 types of arena. You have Arena of Champions, which is tied to some drops as well, and you have Endless Arena, which is just for the leaderboard. If you want to showcase your build and see how far you can go into the arena, say you clear 500, 600, or 1,000 waves, that is where you want to go, the Endless Arena, just for the leaderboard, okay? So that pretty much covers it for the dungeons and arena. Now let's go back to corruption. When do you want to increase your corruption, and why, and by how much? You want to increase your corruption to get better drops, and then you want to get to the minimum of 200 corruption to be able to get every single drops in the game. So there are certain items like Omnis, for example, the amulet that gives you +1 to all skill and a certain amount of all resistances, that only drops in 200 corruption plus. So you want to get at least 200, and then at 200 corruption, you also get a choice of 5 blessings instead of 4 when you kill this timeline's boss. So that increases your odds of finding the correct blessing for your build. So you want to increase the corruption to at least 200, and then you want to increase it again to up until you're comfortable with your build, right? You want to farm somewhere where you're not constantly dying, and you're farming efficiently. That being said, it can be a challenge to, like, you could set yourself a goal to, like, okay, I want to push to 1,000 corruption. I want to push to 2,000 corruption. That is something that is personal to you. And if you like the challenge, there is better reward and better increased drop rates as you go higher and higher in corruption. So that pretty much covers corruption. Now let's talk about how to feel, not feel squishy with a build. There are two main ways to build a character right now. The two most popular ones is building health, a health build, or building a ward build, which can go also low life, right? I'm gonna talk about the health builds today because these are the most common ones when you are leveling up. You don't really go low life early on in early monos or something like this. So this is more of a min-max version. But let's talk about health builds, which is like 99% of builds in last Epoch when you are progressing. So how to deal with feeling squishy? There are two affixes that are extremely important that you must have on every single piece of gear that can have them, and it's increased health and hybrid health. Hybrid has a percentage and a flat amount, and increase has a percentage. So your helm, chest, and belt can all three have increased health, and your belt, boots, and gloves can have hybrid health. If you have all of these rolls at tier 5 on every single piece, you will feel much more tanky because you'll have just so much more life. There's also idols that can be very useful. Vigorous Stout, Idols of Life, have percentage and flat health as well. And there's also some class-specific idols that can also get them. So increasing your health as much as possible, keeping your resistance capped, and then if you have a lot of health, endurance is extremely good as well. Increase your endurance up to 60%, but after having all of these important rolls of health on all of your gear and stuff. So keep your res capped and put increased and hybrid health on every single piece that can have them. I'll have a separate video as well on this. I'll go a bit deeper into the topic, but for now, that is the most important thing you must know. Resistance and percentage and hybrid health, extremely important. How do monos differ in terms of loot? Okay. Different monoliths have different echo rewards. One, for example, will have echo unique and sets boots echo rewards. Another one might have unique and set swords echo reward. So if you're farming for a specific piece of gear, that is the mono you want to go into. Each mono also have specific drop rates based on specific drops based on the boss of that monolith. So, for example, the Emperor of Corpse can drop the very popular Twisted Heart of the Eukeros. For example, the Formosa's boss in the Blood, Frost, and Death timeline can drop all of the low life things, so the boots and the gloves. And that timeline also has access to unique and set chest rewards, which can grant you exsanguinous. So if you want to farm for a low life build, go farm Blood, Frost, and Death, right? So you must decide which timeline to farm depending on which type of gear that you're looking for. And then how deep to go into a web before resetting the web. How deep to go into the timeline before resetting it. So that is completely up to you. But if you want to increase your corruption, you want to go as far as possible. So as far as possible is, I mean, there's the center of the timeline, and then you want to go as far from the center as possible. Find the shade with the highest plus corruption you can. The maximum amount is 18 by default, but I'd say anywhere between like a shade that gives 14 to 18 corruption is a good shade to kill to increase your corruption. Now, corruption can be increased by a couple of different things as well. Like how many times that you've killed the boss of that timeline will give you shades, will give you gazes of Orbis. These gazes of Orbis, assuming you kill the shade of Orbis without dying, you will get an increased amount of corruption gain from that. And then there's also a catch-up mechanic, which if you have another timeline which is higher in corruption, the game will try to bring the other timelines up to that level much faster and give you some bonus corruption. So I hope this helps you progress into the end game of last Epoch, and I hope you have a great time. I'll do more and more videos like this, and please keep the feedback coming, because this one was a comment that I had on another one of my videos, which are all very good questions that a new player might have before getting into last Epoch. Hope you enjoyed the videos, guys. I'll see you guys all in the next one.